This is mediation, not therapy. So there is more hand-holding with me than attorney mediators, but it's how do I move you forward? How do we get through this very difficult process of divorce without you going to court, without you messing up your kids, without you spending all your net worth on attorneys?
What's up?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Jade.
I'm excited about this episode.
What are we doing? Are we doing something a little different?
I think we are.
So in lots and lots of episodes, I think we've been talking about mediation and mediators a lot.
Yeah.
Probably making an assumption a bit that our audience knows what mediation is. But you know what? We're stopping now. We're pausing. And we're actually bringing on a guest, Barry Davis, who is a divorce mediator, to talk about more about what is a mediator. Yeah. What is mediation?
Perfect. Yeah. So hopefully we've got Barry there.
Hey, Barry.
There's the man of the 20 to 30 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a title. Thank you, Jade.
Well, I would like to say man of the hour, but we try and keep these podcasts under that. So, well, thank you for joining us. Because I think it's definitely important to kind of, and I think we're going to try and do this with other sort of professionals in the divorce space, and try and get you to hear directly from them of like their roles and their responsibilities. So you've got the first one of these important individuals.
Wow.
There. So I'm going to give you a quick high-level overview of who Barry is. He's been a full-time mediator since 2003 and practices in the greater Los Angeles area. He specializes in divorce, custody, and family mediation. He holds Master of Arts degrees in clinical psychology, as well as conflict management and peacemaking. In his spare time, he loves anything outdoors. I'm just going to name a few of them: some rafting, paddleboarding, skiing. He's got a pair of 17-year-old twins and his wife, who also really gets to enjoy all those great outdoor activities with Barry. Oh, and a beautiful dog, Scout, which is a sheepadoodle.
And shocker, Jade and Barry have bonded over the love of the outdoors.
Yeah, we were actually we just went paddling with each other and the dog. So it was great.
Yep. We had an awesome weekend of rafting. So but we're going to talk about more serious stuff here. Right?
Serious. We're going to be serious.
Okay. Yes.
Right
now.
Serious.
Yes.
So we're going to pepper Barry with a few questions there, and hopefully this can help educate you as a listener a little bit more about mediation and why you might want to consider involving them during your divorce proceedings.
Right. So Barry, hard question. What is a divorce mediator?
Wow. I would say number one, the divorce mediator is just an alternative to going to court. I keep my clients out of court. Literally, they never see the inside of courthouse. The paralegals I work with do all the filings for them, and I help them deal with everything the court would deal with, but they get to make the decisions rather than what my mentor calls a stranger in a black muumuu, which would be the judge. I can't own that one. That's my mentor, Woody Mostyn. But somebody that knows nothing about your finances, nothing about your family, nothing about you, makes a whole bunch of super important decisions about your assets and your income and your children. In mediation, the clients make the decisions. That's the fundamental underpinning of mediation. And I like to look at it as a facilitated, informed decision-making process. So I facilitate it, make sure we cover what we need to cover, provide options, ways that I've seen other clients handle things so that they don't have to just, what I call negotiate in a vacuum, not have any information. But ultimately, it's an informed decision-making process. There's no agreement until both parties agree. So all the power rests with the clients instead of the judge. So there's a lot of differences, but a lot of it, number one, they stay out of court. Number two, they retain the power to make the decisions. Number three, they get more time to explore things, do research, talk to other professionals, which I think we'll talk about in a few minutes. Think over options. I always do sequential mediation, where we usually meet every 2 weeks or so, rather than what a lot of attorneys do with business mediation. It's a one day, knock it out in 8, 10, 12 hours. And, we'll hope everybody gets a little fatigued by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'll be more pliable.
I guess we'll talk about those differences later and different divorce options. But you mentioned a few things about you as being a facilitator in the divorce and how the decision making really rests with the couple, which is great. But Jade and I in particular, wanted to talk about really myths versus realities, right? What are the roles and responsibilities of a mediator in the divorce process, the three of you, right? The couple and the mediator, because I think Jade and I, when we went through our respective divorces with our mediators, I think we had some expectations there that
we
probably were off a little bit. So for example, for me, I thought, the mediator would be there to mediate, I guess, an argument or call out the other person, right? So if someone was being lazy or not doing what they needed to do, I guess my hope at the time was to say, hey, dude, do your part. You're being lazy.
Yeah.
And Jade?
All of those. So yeah, I guess I thought the mediator was going to be there to call BS on the other party if, they were BSing. And also, I guess, maybe looking out for like telling me my rights and it's like, hey, hang on a minute, that's a really bad deal that's being presented in front of you.
Or do you want to look at this again?
Yeah.
And
I've told the listener already that I've made that mistake there, thinking that.
So maybe for our audience, if you wanted to give some examples of things that you do and things that you definitely should not expect a mediator to do in the divorce process.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very comprehensive question. So I'll try to cover some of it. But if you talk about roles and responsibilities of mediator, there are a lot of them. I thought your examples were really interesting because I actually do a fair amount of what your expectations were. I will say, hey, I'll use mediator speak for it. Hey, we're really outside the box here, which means, hey, or if that doesn't work, I might say you might want to talk to a consulting attorney about that. So there's, like so much of what I do, there's a continuum that I'll go through. So if I have two equally paired, if I have two people that both have MBAs and, they're making some decisions, if they're doing stuff outside the box, I'm not going to be as directive about that. If I've got a stay-at-home parent and somebody that earns $250,000 or $500,000 a year, I'm going to nudge that stay-at-home parent a little more and say, hey, have you really thought about this? Have you really, do you want to meet with a CDFA, certified divorce financial analyst, or a tax accountant or something like that? Mm-hmm. So it depends on the situation, I think. As far as the holding them to task, 9 times out of 10, that's pretty counterproductive because you call people on something, you back them into a corner, they have two options, fight or flight. But I do some nudging, and unlike a lot of mediators, I will talk individually with my clients.
Oh, okay.
So I might email them and say, hey, you're not getting the documents prepared for our sessions is going to slow things down, cost you more money. What can we do? Do you need the paralegal to work with you more? Do you need to work with the CDFA? So I might be able to call them out a little bit more individually because it's not really appropriate in a joint session where it's the other person's kind of like, I think you were talking about, Joe. They're like, okay, yeah, we really took care of them.
That's interesting. I guess one takeaway that I'm hearing from that is then I guess maybe do a bit of extra due diligence, because it seems that all mediators don't have the same sort of practice there, which I guess saying that makes sense.
So we might go back to that a little later in a later question.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah, because I definitely didn't think that.
I didn't get that.
I didn't. I just thought it always had to be, both had to be on every communication. You had to both be in the room always with each other.
You both probably worked with attorney mediators, I'm assuming. Is that correct or not?
I don't know. So I guess
too many years ago, I can't remember.
So note to the viewer, read the mediator's bio.
Most mediators, even these days, are still attorney mediators. So what
does that mean?
That means they're attorneys, and then they mediate as part of their practice. Okay? So it's part of their practice. Sometimes it's 10 or 20% of their practice. Sometimes it's 80, 90% of their practice. But they might not be as actively involved as myself or some other mediators, and kind of managing the process a little bit more, since my background is in human dynamics with the clinical psych and the conflict management, I take a lot more structured approach. And especially if I get clients early on when they've just made the decision and emotions are raw and they're kind of bouncing off the walls, relationally, I provide a lot of structure and hand holding. I wouldn't expect that from most attorney mediators because you meet with them 2 or 3 hours every couple weeks, and that's all the interaction you probably have with them. So there are very different approaches.
Thank you. That's great. Well, actually, this is a good segue to our next question. How is a mediator different from other types of divorce options like collaborative, and perhaps working with a lawyer in litigation?
I look at a continuum from litigation over here, attorney settlement negotiation, which is just attorneys directly negotiating, collaborative, mediation, and then trying to do it yourself. And I actually have a video on that on my YouTube channel about these different ways to look at getting divorced. Collaborative is a great model when you need additional structure. Each client has a consulting attorney. Oftentimes, each client has a divorce coach. There's a neutral financial professional, a neutral parenting professional. So if you really need all that, maybe in situations where there's active addiction issues, that kind of thing, that can be very helpful. There's 4 professionals involved and maybe another 5th or 6th with the financial and the parenting in these meetings, so it gets expensive quickly. What I do in mediation is I try to be kind of the quarterback. I pull in whoever's needed. If we need consulting attorneys, I'll say, maybe both of you should speak to your consulting attorneys about this particular issue, and I'll give them advice. Hey, talk about this aspect of spousal support or this aspect of the parenting plan. Or pull in, coaches or CDFAs. I use CDFAs a lot. So there is a difference definitely between mediation and collaborative, but I try to pull in the best of both worlds.
Do you think that's common across most mediators, or once again something that you need to probably, interview flush out when you're looking for a mediator?
I would flush it out. There's a real good organization called APFM, Association of Professional Family Mediators. They have conferences, they've got a website, and you can look on there and find out how much experience somebody has. Like we talked about, I've got a couple master's degrees, been doing this for 20 plus years. I constantly are going to conferences, trainings to try to get more information so I can work with more and more difficult cases. So
but it depends too, like how much experience in what, right? So
Absolutely.
I think what I'm hearing from you is like experience in human dynamics and communication and psychology versus 30 years in law.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm always feeling like a bridging over to like a therapist. Like you got a lot of these other qualities, like what you maybe have.
You're looking for some warm and fuzzy training.
Warm and fuzzy with structure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Not warm and fuzzy. I leave that to the therapist.
Okay,
but
not warm
and fuzzy with how do we solve this issue? I always am trying to bring conversations, even if we're processing, back to practical decision making, because this is mediation, not therapy. So there is more hand-holding with me than attorney mediators, but it's how do I move you forward? How do we get through this very difficult process of divorce without you going to court, without you messing up your kids, without you spending all your net worth on attorneys? It's that balance. We'll be going through a spreadsheet in a session and somebody will break down crying. And so, okay, we're switching from left brain to right brain, and then we'll be back in their right brain in 2 minutes. And so it's rarely boring.
All right. Professional hand holding.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right.
There we
so
go.
how to solve the problem instead of just like pushing it to solve the problem. I feel like kind of how attorneys are. It's like, let's just do it. Right. And you're thinking of the how. Right.
My training was have a tool belt as a mediator, and you use different tools for different situations. I have a lot of good attorneys that I work with, and I think very highly of them. And there are a lot of attorney mediators that their only tool is a hammer. Here's the law, here's the law. And that I'd found that 80-90% of what goes sideways in divorce has nothing to do with the law. It has to do with the human beings.
Okay. So speaking of these other professionals, so let's go back to those. What is, I'm going to ask about two of them that you said you work with frequently. What is a consulting attorney? Because I think that was a new term for me when I got divorced. Thank goodness someone mentioned it to me, or otherwise I never would have known what it was. So what is a consulting attorney and their role in mediation? And what is a CDFA as it relates to you working with a couple?
Yeah. So a consulting attorney is different than a retained attorney. A retained attorney, you sign away your life. They can plan the strategy and go to court. And attorneys somewhat jokingly say, yeah, the practice of law would be great if it wasn't just for the clients. So they like this idea of going to court, arguing, and the clients kind of get in the way, and they want to kind of direct the strategy, and they don't know best. And so a consulting attorney doesn't do that. They're a consultant, and you oftentimes will pay for them per hour, and you get advice from them, and they provide feedback, let you know about the law. Jade's situation of, he was what I called outside the box of a normal approach. They would let him know, hey, if you want to do this, great, but you need to understand you're maybe giving something up, or you might have tax consequences you aren't thinking about, or something like that.
Is a consulting attorney part of the mediation meetings?
They're generally not part of the mediation meetings with my clientele, largely because of cost. You'd be paying for them sitting there. What I do is I have a list of consulting attorneys I give to every prospective client at the complimentary consultations that I do, because I don't want to be the gatekeeper. I want people to know, hey, these people are part of the process. You can contact them anytime you want. Another one of the underpinnings of mediation is client empowerment. So that's client empowerment. I'm not going to say when you talk to an attorney, you decide when you talk to an attorney. And then they can go to them and get Family Law 101, an hour or two of just what they need to know. Or they can go whenever we get to an impasse on a particular issue and find out, okay, what do I need to know? What are my, what would this look like if I went to court? And then what I really push for is before the final signature of the judgment, I really want them to have that judgment, which is what we'll be submitting to the court on each party's behalf. I want them to have a comprehensive review of that, and that way the attorney can say, hey, let's tweak this language here, or holy moly, you guys are way outside the box over here, and you just need to know. Okay. The longer I go in my career, the more I do what I call inoculating my clients for their attorneys, which is I want them to know, hey, your attorney's going to say you're way outside the box here, or your attorney's going to have a real concern about you giving this up. And that way, number one, they're not surprised when they go to an attorney. And number two, they can decide in advance, hey, do I really want to be this creative? Do I really want to give this much before they get to the attorney? So that's another thing that comes along with experience.
Okay. And then CDFA, how do you work with those?
Broad variety of ways. It really depends on the situation. I like to have, the CDFAs, as the two of you know, have a lot of more complicated financial planning and analysis software that I don't utilize. And so I think if we're looking at a multi-year situation, not even multi-year, decade plus of spousal support or something like that, what does it look like? What does the income look like with the support? What happens whenever child support ends, whenever the youngest child turns 18? What are the tax consequences? How does inflation play in? And I don't have that kind of complex modeling software. And if I've got a really nervous stay-at-home parent who's about to re-enter the workforce, maybe is trying to keep the home, that kind of thing, they need to see in black and white when they're in the black, when they're in the red. How long are they going to be eating ramen and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if they keep the house, that kind of thing.
Got it. Thank you.
So, Barry, next one is,
We've touched upon it a little bit, but just to go back to it.
So what should an individual or a couple be looking for asking when meeting with a potential mediator?
Mediators, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, do they offer a complimentary consultation? If they don't, honestly, just move on to the next one. But because a lot of it is how comfortable are you with them? I offer a 30 to 45-minute consultation where I walk all potential clients through the process. Again, back to this idea of informed decision-making. I want them to get that idea before they even decide whether they're going to work with me. And that knowing that they get information, they get to digest it, think about it, look at options before they decide. And I think that's important when you're deciding upon a mediator to guide you through this process.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said again and again, experience. There are a lot of people that are entering mediation over the last 5 years that I'm sure will be great mediators in 5 or 10 years from now. But it involves a lot of experience. So if you have a complicated estate, you need somebody that knows what they're doing. So the last thing I'd say is if you're going with an attorney mediator, find out how much of their practice is mediation versus litigation. It's mediation's become the sexy new thing. Everybody mediates. And, if they do this 10 or 20% of their practice, then the other 80% is going fighting it out in court. I think they're going to have a certain bias and a certain approach that may not be very conducive to good mediation.
Okay, great. Any, I don't know, specific questions they should be asking besides reading through their experience?
And it sounds like they could check out, they could, I guess, look at different mediators through that website that you had mentioned earlier, correct?
Oh, yes.
They can. It's not as robust as I would like, the APFM website. You would probably be going to their individual, mediators' websites. So I would, I'd talk to them about their experience, talk to them about, if you really want to get, to be a hard-hitting investigative journalist, when was the last time they went to a training on a mediation-related issue? Like you mentioned before, what percentage of their practice is devoted to non-adversarial? So that would be mediation, collaborative law, that kind of thing, versus litigation. What's their approach to working with parenting plans? You've heard me mention parenting a whole bunch of times. I almost never use the term custody. And that's a shift from custody is ownership. Parenting or co-parenting is coming up with a good plan for how we're going to work with this. And that's just a different approach than we're going to fight over how much time each of you gets. So looking at that mindset difference, I think, because that's an underpinning of the whole process.
Great. Thank you. So Barry, more about you.
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do? Why be a mediator in divorce?
Far and away above everything else is children. It's my mission in life to keep children out of the middle of divorce. They're the innocents. They didn't ask for this. They didn't have anything to do with it. And I think they should be kept out of the middle. I always tell my clients, hey, us three grown-ups are going to deal with the hard questions, and we're going to let these kids focus on growing up, going to school, playing sports, all those kind of things. So that's my mission in life, is to keep children out of the middle of divorce. That's why probably 80% of the videos on my YouTube channel are parenting related, child related. How do you, protect your children during this process? I also enjoy the challenge. It's an interesting occupation.
Because you came from corporate America, right?
I was in corporate America for 13 years, was bored to tears most of it. And, could have made a lot more money if I would have just kept doing that. But when I switched careers, one of the things I was looking for was to never be bored. And for better or for worse, I've achieved that. I am rarely bored in the work I do, because with human beings, there are infinite options. When you're dealing with the human psyche, especially the human psyche under stress, which that's pretty much divorce, you just never know. I mean, when you have clients emailing you a day or two later saying, Barry, I wanted to apologize for dropping so many F-bombs in the last session. It's exciting. You're dealing with very interesting situation. Yeah.
Thanks, Barry.
A bit of a tradition on the show is that we have a little segment at the end to have a little bit of fun, where we have to, I guess, give a question to someone, and they've got to divorce one of two things. So
it's called Divorce This or That.
Yeah.
In light of what you two did this past weekend.
Yeah.
And we know that you also love to travel with your family around the world and go on lots of adventures. So I came up with this one while you two were rafting, and I hope it'll be a stumper. Okay. All right, Barry, ready? Okay.
Yep.
If cost was not a factor, divorce this or that. Safaris in Africa or rafting on the Kern?
Oh, that's the.
You have to give one up. Never again.
Yeah, never again.
Oh, I didn't get that was a parameters. I thought I got to choose for one of them like next summer.
Oh no.
You're divorcing.
Yeah.
It's over.
Never again.
No. So in mediation, those that have been doing this for a while, one of the strategies is to ignore impasse. When you feel like you're at this, they're saying, nope, we're not going to give on this. We're not. You just ignore it and you keep talking and keep working the situation.
Wait. Back to the question.
We only have a few more minutes, Barry.
That's what I'm saying.
This is the hammer. This is the hammer.
I know, but I refuse to acknowledge the hammer. We got to keep working the problem because there is a way to do Kern rafting and safaris. It's just you're seeing part of my approach.
I feel
and
like
personality.
I want to give him a chance. I want to give him both as well. So,
you know what? Wouldn't we all be better off if we can find a more creative way to work together and, a way? Maybe we alternate years. Maybe, husband gets to go to safaris in odd years and wife goes in even years. And, so.
You're not playing the game, Barry.
Joe's giving me some tough ones. I think one time I had to pick from the mountains or the ocean or water. And I was like, oof.
Just because you're a guest, we'll let you off this one time.
I will, and just because I am a guest, I will honor the game and I will say safaris in Africa because I can't give up rafting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But that's not what I would have done in a mediation session. We would have just kept at it until we found a good solution that everyone could live with.
You could find a safari somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, because I did say safaris in Africa. So maybe you go to a different region in the world.
Nepal, maybe Patagonia.
Right. See, we were able to mediate here and find an alternate solution. I think this was okay.
All right. Yep. So we're going to have one for ourselves now. And it's going to be having to decide between bread or potatoes.
Yeah.
So for me...
this is all carbs. All
right? Carbs.
So Jade, bread or potatoes?
I want to take Barry's line of attack because they're so important to me. I make my own bread. I've got some really cool salt and vinegar potatoes that I do roast in oil.
So I feel like I want to talk about why I thought of this question again while you two were having fun and rafting and stuff. I think I was thinking back to a recent vacation where potatoes kept coming up as part of the dinner option. And in my mind, I was like, I don't give a
Yeah.
Or
they're
bread.
A staple. Yeah. Look.
Yeah. So and you bake bread, right?
I bake bread
and
a good loaf at that.
But then you bake bread and you eat bread all the time.
Yeah.
So which one? Divorce this or that?
I'd have to get rid of potatoes because I make a good loaf of bread and I love bread. I love a sandwich for lunch.
So you're giving up potatoes, French fries, chips, as you call it.
Chips. Everything's a chip. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give up potatoes as much as I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
What about you?
I give up both.
No, it's just giving up one.
I want rice. I'm not a white person. I'm an Asian person. I like rice. I could care less about potatoes. I didn't see rice as one of the questions.
It was bread.
I don't care about either. So.
Geez, well, that's not nice. You're getting quite combative in this. I need a mediator.
Either. I'm not playing the game.
Notice, Jade, she waited for you to answer first before she totally disregarded the rules of the game.
Yeah.
So I would have to keep an eye on her in mediation because she's a non-traditional negotiator.
I'm going to go talk to my consulting attorney and I'll get back to you on it.
Please do. Okay. Find out. You might want to reference family code about, these kind of decisions.
Or that segment. Yeah.
Well, this brings us to the end of another episode of Cover Your Assets. Today we had Barry Davis, our friend and mediator, to talk about mediation. We went through a few things. What is the mediator? What are their roles and responsibilities? How is a mediator different from other types of divorce options like collaborative or using an attorney?
What couples should be looking for when they're seeking out a mediator?
Yep.
And I guess we also asked, found out about Barry's why. Like, why does he do it?
Yes. And other professionals that might be involved in a mediated divorce.
So we're going to include some additional information in the show notes about Barry's practice there, and also some links to his YouTube channel that has
his website,
those educational videos.
In case you want to find him later and mediate with him. So thanks, Barry, again for joining us.
You're very welcome. I did want to clarify, Jo has referenced several times, she just keeps on being general, what Jade and I did last weekend, which just sounds a little lurid. We went rafting. Let's be clear. We were outdoors with other people rafting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just
on the Kern River.
On the Kern River. Wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sleeping on dirt. Yes.
Sleeping on dirt and getting splashed.
Yeah.
In the river.
Been by ants. Yeah.
And
well, thanks
ants.
for everyone for joining us, and hopefully you found this educational. Hopefully it shed a little bit of light onto what a mediator does, their roles, and maybe if you're working with a mediator and you're not happy, maybe seek out a different mediator with a different approach. All right. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.